Hey there, Revolutionary. Before we dive into today's episode, I have something super exciting to share with you. If you've been struggling to find your breakthrough moment and you're ready to take your author career to the next level, I want to invite you to check out the High Vibe Author Membership. It's my new membership packed with transformative courses, powerful meditations and hypnoses, and a supportive community that's here to help you manifest the abundant author life you've always dreamed of. Head over to authorrevolution.org/high vibe to learn more and start your journey to success today. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm Carissa Andrews, author and your host, here to help indie authors like you master mindset, harness manifestation, and embrace cutting-edge innovation to elevate your career. Let's dive in. Well, hi there, guys, and welcome back to the Author Revolution podcast. Okay, today I'm welcoming a very special guest, someone who has been instrumental in shaping the world of author crowdfunding. Oriana Leckert is the head of publishing at Kickstarter, and she's been a guiding light for so many of us who are bringing our creative visions to life outside of those traditional models. She's not just about ticking the campaign boxes, though. She deeply understands what it feels like to build something magnetic, something that truly resonates with our community. And as many of you know, by this point, by the time you're listening to this podcast episode, I recently wrapped up my own Kickstarter campaign for Write Your Reality. And I can say firsthand that Kickstarter is an art form all on its own. So today we're going to go beyond the basics and tap into Oriana's incredible insight about what makes campaigns not just good, but transformational. So Oriana, welcome to the Author Revolution podcast.
Goodness gracious, what an incredible intro. I'm so happy to be here and just like a true delight to get to talk to you.
I know, right? I can't believe you haven't been here before. I was looking at things and I'm like, how did I not bring her onto the show before? Like, what? That makes no sense. Oh,
The best
just,
time is now.
I agree. I agree. Well, I'm definitely thrilled to have you here. And at this point, I think a lot of us authors know who you are, especially if we've gone to, different conferences or if we're thinking about Kickstarter. I know I've talked to a lot of different authors who are on here and they've brought you up too, obviously. So I'm curious then to go beyond the basics, and I want to know, what is your role that you play at Kickstarter that most authors wouldn't expect? Like, are there any hidden work behind the scenes that are just surprising?
I think my job continues to surprise me every day. The version of this question that I often get is like, what's a typical day in your world? And I'm like, I still don't know. I've been doing this job for 6 years. I still don't know what a typical day is, what to expect. I mean, in all the ways, I'm so tremendously lucky to have this job. I can hardly believe it. I get really broad leeway to decide what my job is, literally on a like day to day, week to week, event to event, campaign to campaign basis. So what would surprise people? I mean, I have often joked that there are like four parts of my job, right? Like publishing industry expert, crowdfunding consultant, life coach, and cheerleader.
I
I
love
don't
that.
know if that's like tremendously surprising. If you know me as a human, you would probably guess that in an emotional way, I play a cheerleader in all things. And the life coach, my sister is actually an accountant, and she said to me early on in her career, I thought I was doing this job because I like numbers, not because I like therapy. It is like shocking how much
Yeah.
emotion, goes into, especially around money, especially around community, all of that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to hedge. I think, you know, it is something maybe people aren't as aware of is that like I also like I am the head of publishing, which is a fancy title. I'm also the entire publishing department at Kickstarter. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
we've also got a head of comics. So like it is divided. I used to run comics also, and they decided that I was doing, between like 2 and 10 people's jobs. So they split that up. But
Now you just
so
do five. That's
yeah,
fine.
well, exactly, exactly. So a not insignificant amount of my job involves explaining the publishing industry to tech people,
Mm,
and just also sort of like various ways of like liaising, like taking the knowledge that like I know and am gathering all the time and like bringing it in of like, here's what people in my world think and how that would impact, I get to talk to our engineers who are like building all these new features and I get to say like, well, when you're fulfilling a book campaign, that's really different than when you're fulfilling a gadget. And like, here are needs that my people might have that you wouldn't have thought of. We've had like, a long running issue around pen names, which is not
mm,
100% unique to publishing, but like pretty close, and so
yeah.
like, having to, I get to talk to the trust and safety team who are balancing legal requirements for the company with sort of like what our creators' needs look like in the real world. So yeah, I think that part of my job, I get to talk to everybody at the company, really. Like I get to talk to the marketing team about like which projects I think would make sense for different newsletters. I get to talk to the executive team about like how my category functions and how Kickstarter is sort of like thought of and understood within the book world. So I don't know. Are you surprised by any of that? Would you count that
I
surprising?
I think the thing that surprised me the most was in the beginning where you said life coach. I'm like, tell me more about that. Like, how did that happen?
Well, I think in the same way, like a Kickstarter, running a campaign, it can be a sort of like down and dirty, quick and easy, like let's just toss this out and raise a couple grand. But like I do get to talk to a lot of people who like they're at various points in their career and we get to have like deep conversations about like does this make sense for you right now, what are the ramifications, for you as an author, for you as a human, for you maybe as a parent or a pet owner, like how are you going to fulfill it and what's that going to look like for your life and like so all of those things. I mean, I don't know that I'm truly coaching people on like the whole of their lives, but the
Yeah.
way that a campaign can fit in, that's not true for everybody, but definitely for some people there's a
Wow.
lot
So did
that
they
you
reach
talk
out to you
about.
then? Like, how did they get in touch with you for that stuff? Because for me,
You
I'm like,
know,
this was fun just to like build myself, and then like getting to talk to you now is like just a special bonus, you know?
yeah, I am very accessible. I have a weird name. I'm extremely online. And like, if you find me, I will talk to you. This is not, I must say, something that necessarily my bosses love, that I will like get really in the weeds with kind of anyone who asks. I also, I
Sure.
suppose, have to be, I have to be protective of my own time. I do have like some ways in which I got to be like, you know what, like at this stage, I can't give you more yet. Like we have to wait until this or that. Here's some tips, here's some advice, here's some educational materials, like come back to me later. Or, if people like will find me to be like, I'm having this like technical support issue with my suitcase campaign. Like that's just so far outside of what I'm paid to do. Like I
Yeah.
just really can't be there for you on that one. But yeah, that's and also like I'm in the world, as you know, like I'm at conferences, I'm at
Yep.
gatherings, I'm at all kinds of so like it isn't even necessarily that someone comes to me and is like, I need to know whether this is a thing that I should do right now. Like we joke, my team is called the outreach team, and like we're sort of always working, never working. Like I cannot help but be at a dinner party and like start talking about like, well, if you actually turned that IP into a tarot deck, like a campaign could really help you here and
Right?
there,
I could see
and
that
so like
happening.
all of those things. Yeah.
I can so see that happening. I
Yeah.
think I do that myself, where it's like you must have high ideation in your Clifton strengths too. Have you ever done those?
Somebody else just talked to me about Clifton Strengths. I think also on a podcast. I don't know, but I think they said the same thing.
I think that you should look because I bet you high ideation is up there because it's up there for me too. And I'd be like, oh, we'd be springing back and forth with ideas left and right. It'd be so cool.
I think I took exactly one step, which was I Googled it, I clicked on a quiz, I did half of it, and then it was like ready to give us money, and I was like, delete.
Oh, darn it. Yeah,
Yep.
the Clifton Strengths, like if you get the what is that book called? Strengths Finder or Path Strengths Finder 2.0, you get like a free test in the back of the book
Oh,
to be
cool.
able to do it, but it's super fascinating. So it's been worthwhile for me. I like it a lot.
I did that finally with Enneagram. People talked to me about Enneagrams for so long that I finally bought a book. And
Right?
I had been so skeptical until I read the description of type 2, and I was like, okay, all right. Like that's a bit too close. Like dial it back. Did you write this just
I
for
feel
me?
very called out right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where did your love for publishing come into play? Like, how did that all come together?
Golly, it's been the only most consistent thing in my life since I was young. I mean, I suppose when I was 15 or 16, I thought I was going to be the next Bernadette Peters. I was like
I
a big
guess.
actor, obviously, a big singer, like in high school, a little bit into college. But like once the sort of once that dream diminished, I think I books have always been the thing I've loved most in the world. It's been
Same.
the most consistent thing in my life. I think, my there's a photo of me somewhere, my senior year of college. I'm holding a fan of purple envelopes in which are resumes printed on like, I don't remember, glittery ink on blue paper that I was sending for like job applications to like FSG and like New Directions to be like senior editor. I was like, obviously, me at 21, I will be hired at the most prestigious publishing company. Yeah, none of that played out exactly, but my whole career has been in and around the publishing industry. I have sort of a parallel career as an arts and culture journalist, which happened by accident and like has fed my soul in many ways that I never
Wow.
expected. But yeah, this is just what I've always done. And again, like I never thought I was going to be working at Kickstarter. This was much of my career. I never thought I was going to be doing what I was doing next, but in so many unexpected ways, this job is just such a synthesis of like all the things I like and all the things that I am not always aware that I'm good at. So I don't
Yeah.
know. That's
Isn't
how I
that
am.
amazing? I love how that comes together. It's like when we don't
Really,
try to force a certain career or a certain path, the right ones do really kind of come to us because, like, how would you like Kickstarter? I remember the
totally.
first time I did a Kickstarter campaign was like 2013, like way back in the day
That's
when I
amazing.
was launching my first book and I didn't know what I was doing and the first one failed and then I realized what I did wrong with the first one and like immediately just relaunched and it was fine.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's like I would even looking back then, I would not have anticipated the transition and how it's changed and evolved over the years.
yeah.
And like, so it makes total sense to me, like how you would come into this place with all of your gifts and all of the insights and all the things that you have and just be able to rock it. It just makes total sense to me.
Well, thank you so much. And I suppose I should call out my former boss who hired me, who is someone I had known professionally for a long time. She was the head of publishing for 5 or 6 years, and I think her name is Margot Atwell. In fact, depending on when this comes out, she's got a live campaign right now. She's doing being published with the Feminist Press, an anthology called Absolute Pleasure, which is queer authors writing about the Rocky Horror Picture Show on the occasion of its 50th anniversary and how it
Wow.
impacted them and all of this. Anyway, I think that she is singularly responsible for like so much of the way that Kickstarter and publishing have interacted over the years. So I very much consider that I'm like continuing her work, that she laid all the groundwork for me to be able to succeed in the way that I have in this role.
That is so awesome. I love that. So when is that campaign running? Do you know by
Great
chance?
question. It just launched this week. I'm pulling it up right now. It closes on May 22nd.
Okay, yeah. So the podcast comes out the day before. So perfect. So if you are
Okay,
listening to this podcast,
go, go,
go check
go.
it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's so boring to say a URL, but it's kickstarter.com/projects/Margot, MARGOT/absolute dash pleasure. Back her campaign now.
Yeah, that sounds so awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. And well, obviously I get to do it now because it's open already.
Heck yeah.
So good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so obviously you've seen so many campaigns come across your desk. When you feel that this is a special one, gut instinct about a campaign, what are some of the less obvious signals that you pick up on?
Yeah, I mean, it was so kind of you to send me these questions in advance. And so I read them and I was like, wow, these are so much different than the questions I usually get. I could either deeply prepare or wing it. And so I chose the latter. So I didn't really, I mean,
Good.
I kind of thought it would be more authentic to just like answer you on the spot. I mean, so let me re-say it. Some of the lesser known elements of a campaign that I think is really special.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one thing I noticed that not everybody does is whether a person has backed campaigns. This is not like a consistent signal. Sometimes you've got a separate account that you've been backing from, or like maybe, like it doesn't always matter. And I don't know who else notices it, but I think that tells a couple of things. It demonstrates that you understand the power of community, that like this is not necessarily just a well that you go to like take water, but that you're also like putting your money and your time back into it. It also
Yeah.
shows me that you have looked at and probably studied, or at least on a subconscious level, gotten a sense of the way other people do this. I mean, plenty of people can run a Kickstarter in a vacuum and like, lots of people can do great that way. But having seen what other people do, I mean, this is a line and I say it all the time, but like I'm an expert in Kickstarter because I stare at Kickstarter all day long. And you
Right?
too can stare at Kickstarter all day long and you can find what other people are doing, projects like yours, different from yours. Like I was just in a talk last night and somebody brought up one of our big games campaigns, Throw Burrito, and a way that they did, gosh, can I remember something like it's a I don't remember all the details, but it was like if you wrap yourself up in a blanket like a burrito and post it on Instagram, something happened. Like if 100 people do that, everybody gets an enamel pin. I don't know, but like, well, that's a crazy idea. Like that's a way I never would have thought of structuring, like this kind of like social proof and like kind of in a hidden way, getting people to spread the word for you. Anyway, I mean, I don't need to go too long on this, but like also like the creative rewards are another thing that like really really thrill me. Like that's my most favorite thing to see. Like not necessarily complicated swag, or even I love the special editions, but like even the wild, a velvet cover and like a stained glass window in the slipcase, whatever. I more get excited about like the stuff that only you could do, that only makes sense for your audience. An example I
Yeah.
always give about this is like Penny Reed has she's a very well-known romance novelist. She did a campaign for a series called Knitting in the City, and she's got a buddy who owns a yarn store, and they made a custom color of yarn that was only available during the campaign. Beautiful, wonderful. I love that. I love Willow Winters, also a romance novel, an erotic romance novelist. In her early campaigns, she made scene boxes where she wrote out the sex scenes like a film script and included in the box like the toys and the accessories that are used so you could act out the scenes from your favorite books at home on your own. Like these are the things. Oh, I just heard another one recently, someone doing, I think Kat Singleton doing a Why Choose Romance had candles that were scented after each of the suitors. Come on. Come on, that's so cool. And like, I think that matters because you're not writing an erotic romance novel. You don't have, a heroine who knits, but there's something like that in your work that you could pull out and make into a fun reward that's going to be exciting for you, thrilling for your backers, maybe deepen your bonds with like other people in your creative community. Like, I love that. I love that stuff so much.
That is so cool. Yeah, for like write your reality, I was trying to go much more into like the quantum manifestation, helping people understand that. But I'm in the process of like mapping out my steamy rom-com one that I'm going to be doing in July. And so for me, it's like learning about all the different tools and things that you can create that are just yours. That's been so much fun because then it's like it like you just said, it's tied to what your IP actually is, but it sparks it in a new way that's just so um visceral that you're like, this was all just in my head. And now there's like this thing, not just a book, but like a thing that's physical that's tied to that thing.
Totally.
It's wild.
Or even virtual. I mean, something as simple as like, here are 20 tracks that I love to listen to while I write, or a book soundtrack, or like, here are 5 other authors whose work inspired me so much that I've made a nice, pretty PDF of like the recommendations that I have for them, or naming rights. We see this all the time. We'll name the
Mm.
dragon after your dog, we'll name the villain after your mother-in-law, we'll name the hero after your son. I've seen also, if you have like very fancy friends, you know, this woman, Emily Flake, made a residency upstate for like female identifying comic writers. And so she's like a New Yorker cartoonist. She does have fancy friends. I know one of them was like, Josh Gondelman will call your mom on her birthday to wish her a happy birthday. Like it doesn't have to be a lot of money. It doesn't even have to be a lot of time. It just has to
Yeah.
be special and meaningful to you and the people who are supporting you.
That is so good. I love that. It kind of, in a sense, touches on the question that was going to ask you next, where it's like, a lot of authors, we get hyper focused on those pricing tiers and like the deliverables and what's going to happen there. But from what your experience, what's the biggest missed opportunity that you see when it comes to activating a backer's emotional investment?
Just interacting with the backers directly. It is wild to
Mm.
me. Like this is, I think, one of the big things about Kickstarter is that we help collapse the like divisions between
Yes.
a creator and their supporters. And like this doesn't have to be tell all your backers to wrap themselves in a burrito and make an Instagram post about it. Like it can be as simple as like before the campaign even starts, talking to them. I'm
Yeah.
working out what things, what swag. I'm going to do one nice piece of swag for this campaign. Would you rather see a personalized notebook or a tote bag with art by this gorgeous creator? Just ask them, even if you always wanted to make that notebook and that was always your intention, the act of asking them is going to make them feel included. You can also say, or see, tell me something else that I haven't thought of. Maybe enough people tell you to do a thing you hadn't even considered yet that turns out to be easy and fun and cool. And you can interact with the backers before the campaign, during the campaign, after the campaign, like all kinds of ways. So I
How do you
think
interact with them before the campaign? Because I
you
don't.
through whatever avenues are already available to you through your
Okay.
so I guess I
Oh,
should say your supporters. They are your
yeah, yeah.
theoretical
Okay. I was
backers. But
like, you
yeah,
can
like,
do that in the campaign itself.
oh,
Like,
you're
what?
right.
Okay.
Alas, you cannot. But
Don't
yeah.
freak me out there because I was like,
Although
did I miss it?
what could you do? I bet on your pre-launch page, now that we've expanded those, you could probably like have a quiz there that says, at me on Instagram or like DM me and choose A, B, or
Oh,
C on this quiz. Like there's probably ways you couldn't do it through the platform. You can't message people yet, but
well,
I bet
I
there's
suppose you
creative ways to
kind of
find
could
it.
though. Like if you've already run a campaign and it's in the
Oh,
similar genre, you
100%.
could comment those or ask those people who've already backed you.
100%. Yep,
Yeah, that
absolutely.
would make sense too.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hmm. That's so good. There's so many different ways. Like I've been right now with the campaign for Write Your Reality is technically still going, but I've been interacting and just dropping like little updates and thank you. You actually gave me the advice to hold back on all of the stretch goals and just plunk them in one at a time. That was perfect. That was so good. And so I've been doing that. It's so interesting. But authors, I don't know what it is about authors on platforms. They are so like they're just like you do you, boo. You ask a question, they hardly respond to you. Like it's so funny.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you probably know there's like an incredible Facebook group. This is not Kickstarter official, but it's
Yeah.
called Kickstarter for Authors. It's run by Anthea Sharp and Thorne Coyle. I dip into it, yeah, a couple times a week just to see what people are talking about. They run an incredible community. There's like over 7,000 authors who are just asking each other all day long, where'd you get your sprayed edges? What are you thinking about tariffs? Will you review my campaign and give me some critical feedback? Like incredible community. I'm really just so dazzled by what they have over there.
That's where I got like the whole checklist.
Like, yeah,
I was looking for it.
absolutely.
I'm like, it's on my desk here somewhere.
Yep,
Yeah, it's
totally.
so good. I personally am not on Facebook anymore. I have issues with that platform, but
This
I
is the
do.
literal only reason I go to Facebook is to check in
Right?
on that group. This I there is internal conversation about making custom discords for Kickstarter and like I don't know. I don't know actually who runs Discord and whether I would rather support them, but I worry I would love it if that existed somewhere that wasn't Facebook, but I can only
Same.
imagine like the difficulty and the barriers to entry of like transitioning a community of that size to another platform. So I
Yeah.
respect, I understand that they're there for now and that's where I find them. And I just hope that someday it becomes somewhere else that's a little less compromised.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you right on that. I haven't, even though the campaign's running, I haven't been back on there. I probably should. I haven't been on Facebook since like January. So I'm like, nope, just can't
Yep.
do it.
I get it.
But
I respect that choice.
yeah, it's been an interesting awakening with that one, that's for sure. I mean, I kind of felt the vibes of that coming for a while, but
Totally.
it was very clear come this earlier this year.
Yes,
Okay,
100%.
so if you could wave a magic wand and change how authors use Kickstarter, what new creative norms would you love to see?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like maybe it doesn't say that great of stuff about me, but like I just want to see what people do. I don't necessarily like that's where I'm so surprised by the creativity that authors bring to it. I don't know. The one idea that I continue to wish we I think that there would be a way to do this technically that Kickstarter would have to help with, but like I want to see somebody like build a book tour via Kickstarter. Like the way that I would love I've suggested this internally before to have like kind of like conditional rewards of like if 10 people back at this tier, then you get it. But in the absence of that, what I would like to see someone do is like a tier that's like $500 that's Columbus, Ohio. And if you get 10 friends, each of whom to give you money, and you put in the $500, I'm coming to your town. And you could like map yourself a tour
Oh,
in that
super
way. I think that
cool.
would be really, really lovely. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's like, I think this is like a kind of a sideways answer to the question. I love that special editions are like the biggest thing and the like majority of the category right now, but I don't want that to have such an oversized impact that people start to think that you can't use Kickstarter for just a regular book or something different. It has to be um the fanciest, most expensive special edition possible. So I mean, I don't want to change it. I don't want any fewer specials. I just also want people to remember there's plenty of other stuff that you can do here. I
Yeah.
guess one magic wand that I literally am trying to wave, I think this is okay to talk about. I would like for Kickstarter to be a reporting entity to Circana, who runs BookScan,
Mm,
So that books sold on Kickstarter can be counted toward sales figures in the trade. I'm working on that. I have been working on that for multiple years. It is so much more complicated than you could imagine, but that's the magic wand that I'm holding, and one day I will wave it and it will
that's
work.
super interesting. I wonder why is it so complicated?
Um, we could spend most of the rest of our time on this. I'm trying to think of what's the shortest way to say it. Part of the problem is that Kickstarter are not sales in a traditional way. The way that most people fulfill, it looks to the retailer, it looks to BookScan like bulk buys, which are like not counted toward
Mm,
bestseller lists. I mean, typically you are buying 100 or 500 or 1,000 copies of your book to send it out to individual people. So the burden falls on us to demonstrate to them why, no, this is not, you know, somebody just like trying to juice the numbers by buying 1,000 copies of their own book. There are individual sales. And so that would mean internally we would need to have signals of like, you know, how many of the, I mean, I think you've seen we've shifted over the last year or so from tier-based rewards to SKU-based rewards. So you can actually now identify in a campaign literally the number of books running through it. Whereas before, not every reward had a book in it, and some tiers had multiple, but like there everything was just a lot more fuzzy. So that's part of it. Anyway, like, yeah, like a lot of stuff needs to happen within our tools that would be able to collect the data properly. And then we'd have
oh,
to educate authors on like what they're doing and why. Do you have an ISBN? So like, yeah, there's all of that stuff. I guess I'll say by the time this comes out, we'll have like made a lot of noise about this. We're rolling out a whole suite of post-campaign tools. We're rolling out our own native pledge management system in early May. I think that puts us a significant stride closer to being able to get this done because of the type of data we'll be collecting, the way we'll be collecting it once we have those systems in place.
oh, that makes sense. Okay. That's really cool. Interesting. I can't wait to learn more. My campaign ends in the middle of May, so I'm like, we're going to be playing around with some of these new tools.
I might have an email for you once we get
Sweet.
off this call.
Yeah, I would love to see. I would love to see. Okay, so are there any early patterns or creative experiments that you're seeing that could quietly transform how authors approach crowdfunding over the next few years? Anything that's kind of like trending that you're like, "Ooh, that I kind of see this building."
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the specials really did, like, if we had been talking a year or 2 years ago,
Mm,
that would have been the thing. I mean, in fact, when I was working under Margot, she was pitching that idea. We pitched that idea to a lot of people, and
sure.
it didn't catch on enough that it became a groundswell.
Yeah.
What's the next thing like that? I mean, I've been looking a lot at like lit RPG. I think that there's a big growth area there. I think especially on Kickstarter, like those books are already like a way to gamify the idea of reading and writing. And like
Yeah.
Kickstarter can be gamified. Our games community is massive. Like that could help some crossovers from like the ravenous games backers into the publishing landscape. I'm also seeing a lot of sort of like IP crossover in a similar vein, like a tabletop board game based on a fantasy novel or an
Mm,
RPG, or like Holly Black did a card game, Sherilyn Kenyon did a tarot deck, like stuff like that. That's like reappropriating stuff that is already yours, that you already have in a new format for a new audience that you can also often like, will raise so much money on this deck, which has excellent margins, that can also fund, a deluxe audiobook version or like the recovering of like the series, like other things like that. So I think Yeah, I'm not sure if that's gonna, what's the question? Quietly transform how authors approach crowdfunding. I don't know. Those are some things I'm thinking about. Is that close enough to
Yeah.
answering your question?
Definitely, definitely. It's very interesting to me just to see how authors are using it. Like I obviously before I got started went through a lot of the nonfiction campaigns just to make sure like, okay, how are they kind of laying things out? Like what kind of tiers are they using? Just because it's been a hot minute since I've used Kickstarter personally, other than backing other campaigns. And so for me, it was just kind of like just taking a look at like how are they doing it? I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool way to add this and then layer that and just like for me, this first time is kind of throwing everything out there and seeing what sticks. Like, what are people actually wanting
Yeah.
in this
Well, and I
situation?
think, many of my examples tend to be from fiction, but I think like there are versions of this for nonfiction. For example, workbooks. I think
Hmm.
Kickstarter is going to become more and more like a really strong place for workbooks because much of the rest of the book selling internet is decreasing them. I think Amazon will no longer stock them because they're like low content or something like that.
Oh,
So
sure.
if you're already writing a nonfiction book with any amount of like, self-help or like exercises or how to, making a companion workbook, making companion courses, again, just
Mhm.
like reformatting the content you've already got into a slightly different version
Oh,
that would appeal
yeah.
to either that would get people to like double their support or appeal to a different audience that wants to learn in a different kind of way.
Oh, sure. You could even come like you just sparked some like ideas in me where I'm like, oh, I could do something like that with my own stuff. Come back with another Kickstarter for the
Yeah,
workbooks that go with that. How cool is
absolutely.
that? That's
Absolutely.
awesome. I love it. So are there any mistakes that you see happening, not necessarily from ignorance, but from fear? Like, are they holding back or playing small? Like, what do you see there when it comes to authors?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I also think I sit from a somewhat lofty space. Like, it's easy for me to pass judgment on whether someone is afraid. I mean, there's a sort of a long-standing debate within the community of like how to set your funding goal. That's obviously a huge and crucial question. There's a big current of folks who set their funding goal, especially for their first or second campaign at $500, which is out of fear. And I get it. I understand. You want to make sure that you fund. That's like the most important thing. But I, it worries me. I mean, Kickstarter was designed as all or nothing funding so that you could do an honest accounting of what you needed and not come to the end and have to do a project without enough money to really make it. Like,
Yeah.
if you ask for $500, I mean, if you're doing like a simple print on demand paperback release, maybe $500 is fine. But if you're doing a complicated, special edition, if you have lots of rewards, all this other stuff, like if you come to the end and you have made a lot less than your budget requires, you're kind of in a bad spot. It puts you worse off than you were. And like, I mean, a sort of counter example here, I was actually hired at Kickstarter to grow our journalism category. And so one of the early campaigns I worked on was like it was a number of writers who had like big bloggers and big sort of like Gawker in that community. They were launching a new collaboratively owned media outlet, right? And I can't remember now. I think they came with like like a $90,000 goal. And I was like, look, I could not believe more strongly in what you guys are doing, but that's really high for a journalism campaign on
Yeah.
Kickstarter. Like, are we really comfortable with that? And the founder, she said, I want when people land on this page for them to immediately see the ambition of what we're doing. Like, I don't want to trim my sails. I don't want to, like, I want everyone to know this is what journalism costs. This is what it means to like start an endeavor like this. And I want that to be clear from the start. And she funded, they made it. So,
Amazing.
as I just to like, walk myself back a little bit. I don't want to encourage people to raise their goals so high that they fail and then they blame me about it. I'm not trying to do that. I think that's sort of the biggest thing that people are scared. They're so scared of not funding that they're not necessarily considering the ramifications of like funding too low.
What are the ramifications? Because for me, when I did this particular one, I set it at 500, but it was a recommendation on Anthea's book. Like if you haven't done a Kickstarter for a while to like set it there. And I'm like, that's fine. It wasn't out of fear, but it was definitely out of like, I don't know where to start, so we're going to start somewhere. Why not?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, and I don't like being against Anthea. I think Anthea is brilliant
yeah.
and wonderful. And I'm not, I just, like I said, depending on what it is that you're making and what your fixed costs actually are,
Mm,
if you end the campaign with like less money than you need, but now you've made all these promises about trim size and,
mm,
bells and whistles and reward types and things like that, you're just, maybe you're fine to fund it, to cover the rest by yourself, but maybe you're going to wind up trying to cut corners, trying to like, produce an inferior product, like disappoint yourself, disappoint your backers. Like all of those are worse outcomes, I think, than if you aim too
mm.
high, didn't get there. And then exactly as you did, we're like, well, I learned a lot of lessons. I'm going to change the way I'm doing things and try again and like hope to get where I need to be at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and for me, it was really easy. Like I have a lot of digital stuff in the background, so I knew that my funding would be fine at 500. Like that's not a big deal. I knew that would be no issue there whatsoever. But my paperback books in the campaign are just normal. Like I'm not trying to go special edition yet. I'm just trying to get them out. This is a new
Totally.
edition for the first book, and so it's like second book's coming out. We'll see how it goes. And it's just been kind of fun to play around with the concept again because I've seen you speak so many times, and then I've seen a lot of the panels and other authors who have been doing it. I'm like, you know what? I feel like now's the time to give it a try and just kind of play with it. So for
Yeah.
me, it was definitely a let's just play with it and see what happens and see if I need to adjust like going forward. So this gives a lot of insight. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you made the perfect choice for you. So again, I'm not out here trying to get
Oh
people to like
yeah, no,
question their convictions.
yeah, for sure. I think it's just really interesting. I like it. I like being able to hear the take on it from what you're seeing and what a lot of other authors are doing, and it just helps a lot to be able to know, where do you fall? Where do you fall in that
Yeah,
spectrum? It's really neat.
totally.
Okay, so in the publishing world, we're often told that we have to build an audience first. Do you think Kickstarter can flip that dynamic, like build an audience through the campaign instead of the other way around?
I think some of that is possible. I think if you were running a tabletop board game campaign, you can come in with virtually no existing audience, and there are such rabid supporters desperate to back every single game that launches. You might be able to like create an audience from almost nothing. I would say that's not true right now in the publishing category. What we see is that an average publishing campaign is getting about 30% of their backings from the Kickstarter ecosystem. As you know, we track that in your dashboard so you can
Yeah.
see the work that you're doing versus the work that is like our value prop, like what we are bringing to you. So I usually, 30%, that's not nothing. That's pretty excellent to grow your audience by 30%. But it is
Yeah.
definitely not everything. Like if you have, I mean, it also depends what it is that you're trying to do. If you have a very modest campaign with low goals, you could kind of come here from nothing. But Kickstarter works best in publishing by having an amplifying effect. Like our algorithm works on attention. You need, if it sees that a lot of people are clicking, backing, commenting, following, etc., that's a signal that like, oh, people like this, let's show it to more and more people.
Oh,
If you
sure.
don't have that early signal, if you can't bring anybody on board, it's not so likely that you'll get the visibility to like completely fund from just native Kickstarter backers.
That makes total sense. It's kind of like, when you go to TikTok and if you don't get any people watching or liking or commenting in the first like whatever 5, 10 minutes, it's very likely that that video is not going to go very far because you,
Totally.
you don't have the kind of traction to get it moving. So that
Yeah.
makes total sense. That's interesting. Okay, so what's something surprising that can catch Kickstarter's eye, something that authors wouldn't necessarily realize mattered?
Yeah, I mean, Kickstarters, I suppose that's not exactly a monolithic thing. I don't think authors don't realize that it matters, but I think your project image is really important. I would say in the 6 years from when I got here to now, people know this lesson much more clearly. I remember when I was interviewing for the job. I mean, again, I was looking at journalism projects, but I was like, what are these people doing? None of this is appealing at all. I would not back it. But yeah, I think, a good piece of advice is like, look at your campaign on your phone. All you're going to see is the title, subtitle, project image, maybe like one sentence from your campaign story. And I think you want to know that with just those elements, you've like really enticed people, that like your
Yeah.
project image is like bright and colorful. It's not overlaid with like so much text that when it's little is going to be hard to read. You've got like some interesting keywords in your like main elements, maybe a little, a teaser as your like opening paragraph, because that's all you're going to get from a lot of people. Is in fact more than you'll get. Many people will just see the project image scroll by on a search page or, on a social platform or something like that. So like just really, really make sure that those elements working together are going to like grab people and draw them right in. And that doesn't mean to do too much with your project image. That's the other thing that I see with like the project image will have the cover image, a mock-up of like a book, a paperback, a hardcover, and a tablet. Also, the tagline, like written across it, like so, and like
Yep.
if all so much that's confusing, that will have the opposite effect. I think like a beautiful photo, like the image on your cover, like your book mock-up sitting in an interesting with a border, like I don't know, things like that. I mean, as ever
Simplicity.
look at what other people are doing and figure out what your version of that is. You can scroll a search page and just see like, well, which are the ones that jump out to me? What can I replicate about that for my work?
That makes total sense. Okay, so this is a complete side note question because what you said just kind of made me think of something when you're talking about SEO and making sure that the words and the language and stuff, and so not necessarily the image is enticing and makes sense. I know for me, I used ChatGPT to be able to try to like hone in really onto like what are the words that are going to matter most for my campaign. And I know that you guys have an AI, oh gosh, what's the thing called? The AI thing where,
Disclosure,
yeah, the
disclosure.
disclosure
Yeah.
at the bottom. And I know that from my experience, it's not an issue to use AI. You just need to disclose it, right?
Yeah.
I had a friend who I think she did some AI images and her campaign got like shut down. And then because she just hadn't checked the box, she
Yeah. Yeah.
hadn't
Yeah.
realized that
Yeah.
her images is on the campaign. And so for me, I'm like, that's so cool that you don't, number one, you don't mind that we're using AI to be able to help us to write better copy. Because I think a lot of authors were good at telling stories or we're good at doing that sort of thing, not so great at being copywriters.
Marketers. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your personal take on like that whole thing? Like, should authors be paying more attention? Do they make sure they click that button? Like, what has to happen there?
Yeah, I mean, I actually I will politely decline from sharing my personal opinions about AI.
Okay.
I don't think that helps anybody. I will say I do feel good about Kickstarter's policy because to me, it's one of radical transparency.
Mm,
Like I think what matters Kickstarter is about connecting you with your supporters. And so if your use of AI is enhancing your product in a way that is going to make your supporters really happy and they're going to be delighted to back it because of or despite that, I think that's wonderful. Like we are in the business of supporting creativity in all of its forms. So I do really like that. I mean, yeah, I said I was going to refrain. I have concerns. I have concerns, about the sort of like we are to me the sort of like fundamental sin of AI, which is like that it's built largely on stolen creative work. I don't think we can fix that now. Like that happened. And so that's what gives me varying degrees of pause depending on which systems and which ways people are using it. But again, this is not about
yeah.
me. This is about
Yeah.
you and your audience. And so yes, I think everyone should use that disclosure both so as not to run afoul of like Kickstarter's rules, but also so
Yeah.
that nobody is surprised.
Yeah.
You don't want your backers to think you're doing things one way and then find out that it's another way and feel tricked or misled. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think absolutely. And if you're using AI, be proud of it exactly as you just were. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Nobody should be doing it like furtively or strangely. Talk
Yeah.
about what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it has helped you, and let your supporters be on board with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's really important that you do pay attention to that too. So like if you're whether it's your images or whether you're using it for, marketing text or whatever, you're not going to get penalized for it. It's just a disclosure and that's all it is. It's
Totally.
so good.
Yep. It would be more, you would get more penalized if you didn't disclose it and then people found out later and felt like you had not been truthful with them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, so what energetic shifts have you noticed in campaigns that either lose momentum or come roaring back even stronger?
Yeah, I think this question is broadly about the sort of like plateau period in the middle, which happens to everyone, even Brandon Sanderson. Uh, had some periods where it was a little slower, where he was only earning like a couple $1 million a day.
Right?
Um, yeah, so what do I have to say about that? I mean, I think people should plan for it. Be aware that that's going to happen and like that's okay. It's not your fault. But really think about what you can do during that time to keep the momentum going. We touched briefly on the idea of stretch goals. This is a common mistake I see that people lay out all their stretch goals right on the page. I can see if you're like really excited about those things, you just want everyone to know, but I think you rob yourself of the opportunity of revealing them, announcing them,
Yeah.
talking about why, and getting people excited. That's a great thing to do during that plateau period. Telling people, hey, remember this? Like, guess what? We've gotten to this point. We're going to do this other thing. Help us get there. Or send them quizzes like we talked about. Would you like us to do this or that? Blah, blah, blah. That is not to say, by the way, you should not thoroughly budget for and understand all the stretch goals you're offering before you launch. You must do that, but you don't need to tell everybody everything when you first start. I'm trying to think of some other tactic because I've seen one cute thing that I used to see more in journalism. Is like if you have someone with deep pockets who is gonna happy to invest $1,000 or $5,000 in your campaign, you can sort of rig up a little DIY matching campaign in the midst of your campaign. You can say for the next 3 days, an angel investor will be matching all donations up to $1,000 or $5,000 or whatever to give people that like real good feeling of like your money is counting double at this moment. I think that's a cute thing. But the middle period is a great time to go on somebody's wonderful podcast or like get, on an Instagram live or a TikTok feature or a review, something like that, which are also, ways to galvanize other audiences and kind of bring them to your work. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm still answering this question in the way that you asked it, but make a lot, think hard about what you can do to kind of keep the enthusiasm going, counteract that bit of a slump, or, to come roaring back in your final week when the sort of now or nothing, now or never, all or nothing, do or die really kicks in and you can like marshal your efforts there.
Do you see like an organic surge at the end from Kickstarter's
A hundred
perspective?
percent.
Like people who have been
Absolutely.
watching for a while and then they're finally like, oh crap, it's time. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, 100. People also, all of your followers will get a Kickstarter email 48 hours before the campaign ends. And I believe that people who have been following since the pre-launch phase will get another reminder email at the 8 hour mark before you close. And also,
Gotcha.
you're exactly as you said, like
Yeah.
your marketing ramps up, your outreach gets
Yep.
more high key. This is it. This is your last chance.
Yep.
Yeah, that does tend to drive backings for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I like that a lot. Okay, where are we at with time? Because I have a special thing that I'd love to do with you, but I don't want to keep you too long. Are you cool? Like we could do it rapid fire. I have this thing, like a quick little segment that I would love to throw some fictional Kickstarter setups and just like you could give like a really quick description of like what you would want to do to improve it if you're
I love
open.
it. I love it. That
Yeah?
sounds so fun.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the first one. You see a memoir author running their first Kickstarter. They're offering one-on-one coaching calls as the reward. What should they do to improve that?
I mean, I kind of love that, but also you can sort of like fragment it. You could do group sessions, you could do sort of like other kinds of like interactive elements. Prov the wait, so what'd you say it was a memoirist? What in this
Yep.
example, what's the memoir sort of about?
No, you don't get that information. It's just a
I don't
memoir
get that.
author running their
I
first
see.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, if that fits with the
That was a
theme
good question.
of the memoir, I mean, if it's a
Yeah.
memoir of, like, how I cleaned up my hot mess of a life, then and they're
Right.
coaching people on like, recovery or like things like that, I think that totally makes sense. If it's a memoir of like learning to cook better, I mean, I don't know, that could anyway, yes, great. I think that's fine. I think one-on-one coaching sessions are great, provided that you have a skill set that people might want to be coached
And that
about
ties to
and
it.
for and by. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, how about this one? An author launching their first book in a fantasy series is announcing six ambitious stretch goals before the campaign, even before the funds are hitting their baseline. Perhaps this was based off of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would, as we've discussed, certainly I would hold those back. I think also, especially for a first-time creator, it can just confuse people about like, well, how much money do you need to like do this whole thing? Also, it might shake people's trust if you like are new at this and you're like an emerging writer and you don't have a strong audience yet, like if you're coming here for $50,000 and I click on your campaign and you have six backers, that doesn't make me feel like super great that like you're gonna get there and that, and also kind of like, do you understand what kind of time and effort it's going to take to like really make this stuff, So yeah, I would
Yeah.
say all of that. Those are not excellent signals. Not again to say that it can't be done. I think Brandon Sanderson's first campaign weighs $10 million. Sherilyn Kenyon raised $1 million her first time here. Cassie Clare similarly. But we can't all be Brandon or Cassie or Sherilyn.
Yeah, they could have built-in audiences there that are fairly large.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
real quick question on those stretch goals though, that just reminded me. When you announce the stretch goals, do you recommend having them lower on the page, like as you're building the page, or should they go up at the top when the campaign is running?
That's not something we could A/B test, to be
Oh,
honest. So I
okay.
don't have like a strong I don't think I think I would say, yeah, I don't have a strong preference. If you do decide to put them at the top, when the campaign is ending, I'd move it back down again because remember, people will keep landing on that page forever. And if the
Mm,
first thing they see is about stretch goals, that might be like too inside baseball for them to really understand what's happening here. But I certainly see the wisdom of putting it at the top while the campaign is running.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, last one. An indie author with the gorgeous campaign visuals, well-written descriptions, professional video, all that stuff, but has almost no backer interaction or community building during the campaign itself. What should they do to get that going?
Yeah, interact, talk to your backers. I'm always shocked when I see, especially like fairly campaigns that are going fairly well that have no backer updates. Like, why would you not take advantage of that
Yeah.
direct line to your biggest fans? That's crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, what would I tell them? Do the thing.
Yeah.
This is designed to help you interact with your audience, interact with them. Why would you relinquish that incredible, amazing opportunity?
So good. Or like to reach out, like you said, to other people's campaign or not,
Totally.
well, I guess
Actor
other people's
swaps.
campaigns too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I reached out to Russell Nolte. I think he has a campaign that's running right now that's
He
very similar to
does.
mine.
I love his How to Thrive as an Artist and
Yes, I
Experience.
totally backed that.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Let me see if
He
that's been
hasn't
revealed
responded to me
online.
though. I did it through the Kickstarter like platform and he
How
has not responded.
dare. Um, so two things. You can email me and I'll send it to him and be like, buddy,
Oh,
what are we doing here?
yeah.
I've known Russell for a while.
I would love that.
But I'll also say, just to the listeners, this campaign is live through June 8th. So it
Ooh,
will still be up when you are listening to this, probably. How to Thrive as a Writer in a Capitalist Dystopia. This is
so
Russell's
good.
something like his 45th campaign.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of
I
that
am
guy.
too.
Wonderful.
So good. I saw that because it was obviously being recommended with mine too. I was like, what is this? I need
Nice.
this book.
Nice. Oh, yeah, I'm a backer.
Me
Absolutely.
too. Okay, two more questions and then we'll wrap up here today. So,
Great.
if you could talk to an author that's standing at the starting line, maybe they're terrified, but they're ready, what would you say, not just to coach them, but to recode the relationship with visibility and asking for support through Kickstarter?
See, you know that I'm a life coach. You've phrased this question in a way to like
I
exemplify
must
that.
have. I
Yeah.
must have.
Okay, well, so first of all, I do tell, especially first-time authors, if you are equal parts thrilled and terrified when you press that launch button, you are probably doing it right. I'm not here to say you could not have any fear around this. It is very healthy and natural to have it. I think authors generally know this already, but like when I started here, there's like a persistent belief that Kickstarter is akin to like charity, which that's like no shade to GoFundMe and like other platforms that are designed in that way, but like you're not begging for money when you run a Kickstarter campaign. The reframe that I've been preaching forever is you're inviting people to join you on a creative journey. You're taking this crazy journey and you're saying like, let's do this together. Hey, you know what we need more of in life? Community. Collaboration, rising tides, lifting all the boats. Like, you're going to get rewarded along the way for being an early adopter of like my creative heart and helping me to like make this thing together. I love that as a concept. And if you can communicate that, if you can believe that in your own heart and communicate it to your supporters, how are they not going to be so excited to get on
Right.
board?
I love that. I think that it's such a huge reframe because it's so different from what the indie author like main setup and the way that everything has been run for so long in that dystopian capitalistic society. It's been it's been training us for a very long time now since I mean it's not super long because indie authorship's only what 15-ish years old, but still it's like we're sitting at this point where it's like we want that collaboration, we want the community, and I love that this is like how we get to shift like, not only our relationship to our readers, but like our relationship to receiving for the cool thing that we just created.
Like, totally.
I love that. It's so good. Okay, Oriana, where can listeners go to find out more about you and about Kickstarter for authors?
Golly, yeah. Well, I mean, I said I'm extremely online, and that remains true, but I will say I'm a lot, as we watch all of the social platforms, dissolve before our eyes, I'm a lot less online than I used to be. I am at Oriana, BKLYN on, I think, all the platforms, but I'm a lot less responsive on them than I used to be, just like protecting my own creative hearts. Kickstarter has a ton of resources for creators. We actually just rolled out a whole new creator resource hub, kickstarter.com/creators, tons of like education and worksheets. There's also a publishing creator tips page. I'm just going to get you that link. Kickstarter.com/creators/publishing. That's got many videos of my face doing talks much like this one. Also, but like articles. There's a budgeting article written by Russell Nolte, who we just talked about. There's an article by Dana Claire, who runs the Influence, about the allure of special editions and why you might do one here. There's stuff about planning your audience, about building your mailing list, all sorts of things like that. So, and we've already talked about, I mean, obviously you should be listening to podcasts like this one. You should be on the, oh, I shifted. I'm no longer answering where to find me. I'm just more answering how to find resources on
It's
Kickstarter.
both. Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
both.
so
It's all good.
join that Facebook group, find a Discord community, find a Reddit thread, like talk to other people. Yeah, I think
Go to
that's
conferences and say hi.
Oh, for sure. If you
Right?
ever see me in the wild, please come say hi. I've had people email me and be like, "We were both at the same thing last week, but I didn't want to bother." Bother. It is both my job and my pleasure. You can tell I like to talk to people. It feeds my soul. So please help me help you. Let
Yeah,
me know
I
what
can
I
say
can
from
do for
experience, she always has a line out the door wanting to say hi to her. So definitely take advantage.
please, for sure.
It's so good. Well, Oriana, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time and your energy and enthusiasm. It's so much fun to talk to you.
This has been such an absolute delight. I really appreciate you having me over.
I want to extend a huge thank you to Oriana Leckert for joining me today. Her insights into Kickstarter's ecosystem, especially for authors and creators like us, are so valuable. And honestly, this conversation really couldn't have come at a more aligned time. As you may know, I recently wrapped up the Kickstarter campaign for Write Your Reality, my latest nonfiction book that is blending quantum manifestation with author strategy. It's not just a book, it's a movement for authors who think differently, feel deeply, and are ready to call in aligned success without hustle. And guess what? The journey isn't over. If you missed the campaign during its live run, you can still sneak in the back door. Late pledges are open through mid-June, and that means you still have time to grab some of the incredible bundles, meditations, and even lifetime access to courses and memberships that I've built specifically for authors like you. Just head over to authorrevolution.org/Kickstarter to check out the campaign. Or if you want the full behind the scenes scoop on this podcast episode, head over to authorrevolution.org/272. Again, thank you so much for listening. And remember, you're not just here to write books, you're here to write your reality. So go forth and start your author revolution. Indie publishing isn't a one size fits all, especially for neurodivergent authors. Traditional advice tells you to write every day, stick to rigid marketing plans, and follow the same formula. But what if your brain doesn't work like that? That's where Author Revolution on Substack comes in. This is where I show up, delivering real, unfiltered insights on how to thrive as an indie author with a neurodivergent brain, because discipline and structure aren't always the answer. Manifestation for authors. Yes, you can align your energy to make writing, publishing, and success easier. Deep dives into Author Revolution podcast episodes with extended thoughts, bonus content, and behind the scenes strategies. Also, my neurodivergent book worlds, from neurospicy rom-coms to urban and paranormal fantasy, because my creativity is as non-linear as my brain. And if you're ready to go even deeper, you'll get access to my private podcast, Manifest Differently, The Deep End, where I break down how to actually use manifestation as a neurodivergent thinker. So if you're a writer, creative, or just someone who refuses to fit into the standard publishing mold, this is for you. Follow me now for exclusive content over at authorrevolution.org/Substack.